when I started making CDs, I've made 4. I wanted to especially have some original material, and first CD I made was in 2002, Through the Time, and so I started writing a little more in earnest back in the early 2000s. My influences, John Coltrane, Joe Lovano, Sonny Stitt, Michael Brecker, but it was also like a personal statement, and just something inside me that wanted to create and get my ideas on paper and on recordings, and be able to express myself in that way. Well, the Spiral, that's the title tune off the Summit Records release that I made back and recorded in 2009, came out in 2010. And I wanted to write kind of a suite almost. And some of my compositions, they'll start out and then just evolve as I'm writing them. And so I had an opening section that was inspired by a Stan Kenton riff, actually off of his composition Intermission Riff. And then it went to one section, and then it went to the next section, and then a third part. So it was actually 4 parts together, and in some ways it wasn't preconceived. That's just the way it evolved. And then I took those parts and I wrote a solo section that was going to be different from the melody, but freed us up a little more to solo. And that had a real kind of modal type of part, at least on the solos, where we could really open up and stretch out. Yeah, Smooth Sailing, I wrote for my last release, There Was Never, Zoho Music, came out right at the end of 2015. I must say, in some ways, it was a challenge writing material for that record. But Smooth Sailing was really inspired by a certain mood or sentiment I wanted to convey, which really reminded me of something I liked to do as a teenager in the summer. I'd be on the open water off the coast of Massachusetts in my small little skiff, and just motoring across the water, sometimes by myself, and just singing at the top of my lungs. And so that's where I got the title, the Smooth Sailing. But I was looking for kind of a consonant, very melodic chord structure and melody, where it just kind of conveyed this happy, joyous type of feeling, and set it up in terms of a Latin or a samba type of feel. But the melody and the chord changes are, in my view at least, kind of lyrical, melodic, consonant sounding. Not too far out there. It's got some actually some conventional chord changes. It's got some 2 5s. It's got a E minor into an A7, and then into the E minor 7 to the D7. Very traditional, chord pattern, for example. One of the things that makes it a little more difficult is there's some kind of sudden shifting of chord centers, going from like one particular key to another key, measure by measure at a fast tempo. So the way I teach and improvisation and learn it myself, I believe in knowing the chords and scales inside out, but at the same time being able to create a line moving from one chord pattern to the next where you're just not boxed in. It's a challenge with this tune. Different people have told me that, but at the same time, it's pretty straight ahead. The head is on just that single page from the top to the bottom. It's easy to run down, easy to read. You don't have to play it super fast. You can play it like a bossa nova. And almost as an afterthought, I was playing it for about 6 months or so. I decided to put in a coda on the second page, after the solos, after playing the melody, where it's got a 4 or 6 chord, real melodic type of pattern to it. The chords where we can jam out at the end. And part of what I do with composition is I like to put in little hooks here and there in the melody, or like a chord sequence, or even like a little sudden chord thing here or there, which will really grab the listener's ear, or that'll have that intention. Yeah, these are really some of my favorite musicians, some of the best guys that I know and that I'm able to play with. On piano is Kirk Reese, and he's been a friend of mine for almost 30 years, and we've been musical colleagues. And he's from Lancaster County, like I am, but he's really one of the kind of hidden gems on the East Coast as far as jazz keyboard, and he's a great composer too. And we play a lot, and he cares about what I do, and he's a great interpreter of the music, and he's just a great jazz pianist. And on bass, Tony Marino, I've had the privilege of playing with Tony for the last several years. He was on my last 2 records. So we go back almost 10 years. And of course, a lot of people know Tony. He's one of the great bass players, I think, on the planet. Charter member of the Dave Liebman Group. Plays with a lot of different people, has toured the world. So I'm very fortunate to have him. And I know Tony, he loves to play, and he lives up there in the Poconos, Moscow, I think, a town called Moscow. But he loves to play, and fortunately he enjoys playing with me. On the drums, Dan Monahan, we've really just started playing a little bit more in the last couple of years. And of course, everybody knows Dan. He's one of the great drummers in Philadelphia and beyond. And very busy, very in demand as an educator, as a player. And he's got great ears, swings his ass off. So just very fortunate to have him tonight. We're getting our music out to people in the Philadelphia area and beyond. And for me, it's a chance for my music to be heard, read, maybe used in the school system, and it's an honor for me. And there's nothing wrong with getting more music out there to the young students in the schools, or what have you. They can benefit from it. We all know the jazz standards, and this is just some more music that people can play and appreciate and listen to.